Alright guys, so I just bought this Switch 2 for $450, but I'm feeling crazy. Let's take $100 here and rub it on it and see what happens. Wow, that sucks. JoyCon 2, the $100 sequel to drifty controllers that people didn't really enjoy using that much in the first place, just got their first alternate colors, those being light purple and light green. Now, I have not been diagnosed with color blindness, but this looks more like a blue or a teal to me than a green, but I suppose teal is blue and green, right? Like, I guess this counts as a green. It's a very, very minty green. It's barely green. Honestly, these colors remind me of like the 90s paper cup design. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with like the blue and the purple? Was that intentional? Very odd choice. Are they trying to like, you know, bank on nostalgia again? I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch, but I just have to wonder. I have to wonder if that's like the subliminal messaging that they're sending. But either way, these are ridiculous. These are bad. And why? Why are these bad? Well, it would probably take you 2 seconds to figure it out, but on the Switch 2, this colored portion of the controller where the plus and minus buttons are, the part that extends past the black portion of the controller is what actually goes into the system or the Joy-Con grip, meaning that you would not see these colors, besides the small ring around the control sticks, effectively making this a $100 cosmetic change of just some slight coloration around those control stick areas. The only way you would see the side coloration is if you were just using each Joy-Con independently, which I'm sure there's a number of people that do that, but I think as a whole, this is very uninspired. This doesn't have any ounce of creativity to it. It's extremely minimalist, and I don't even know if minimalist is the right word at this point, because the Switch 1's Joy-Cons were something I would consider minimalist. For most of them, other than like the special editions, they just changed a flat color. You know, one palette to another. That's it. But at least that palette swap made up the majority of what you were holding. The buttons remained the same color, but the actual Joy-Con itself would have a different colored shell. These, on the other hand, don't change anything except for the little side piece, which just feels insanely cheap. I mean, like, is it really that expensive to manufacture some alternate colors of plastic? Because you can tell the pieces that they actually did color are pieces that are distinctly interchangeable from the Joy-Con itself. Swapping out thumbsticks is something that's not very difficult to do. And the colored side piece that locks into the system looks like it wouldn't be something that would be too difficult to change either. So once again, Nintendo has gone with the bare minimum, and I can't really think of an excuse for this. I can't think of any argument for a defense for this. This is $100. This is $100 for a pair of these. For that amount of money, they need to look good. You know, like, obviously the primary function for this being on a shelf is for someone to get replacements. You know, if they broke theirs, lost them, whatever, or maybe for a friend. But secondarily, and almost equally as important, is for the collector. People who are just crazy about the Switch or whatever console they're into, and they like to collect all the different variations of colors, or even if they don't like to collect all of them, they like to get their favorite colors. They wait for these alternate colors to be released, they trade in their original Joy-Cons to get these. That's a very common thing amongst users of these consoles. So for these to be their first ones is honestly kind of hilarious. Like, the people who have been defending Nintendo for the past couple of months are being rewarded with this. It's kind of poetic. It's kind of hilarious that by defending Nintendo for doing the bare minimum, the reward is the absolute bare minimum. Like I said, the only thing I can say about these that makes them even remotely interesting is that they do remind me of that like 90s color wave, but I don't really think that was the intention, and even if it was, it's not done well. Back on the OG Switch, the first alternate colors that we saw was also in a console bundle, but that was the blue and red ones, and while those weren't the most insane or interesting colors or really designs in general, because, you know, they are just flat colors, I will say they gave the Switch a lot more personality. You really started to associate those colors with the Switch. The Switch now had some color to it, some life to it, other than just the boring gray. Now it has the blue and the red, and, you know, they clash obviously, and kind of, I don't know, was an interesting gimmick at the very least. And then you saw those blue and neon yellow ones, I believe, that were with the release of ARMS. And again, those weren't the most interesting, but, you know, they had something. You know, they had a little bit of life there. I'm not going to say they were great. I wish they would have done more, but there's still something to them. But I also can't really defend those much either as far as like price goes, because they were 80 bucks for a pair. Both of them are bad deals in my opinion for what you get. But I really wouldn't be mad at it if the price wasn't so high and if there was a little bit more creativity going on here. Because if you want to have a little novelty market, if you want to cater to people that are going to buy more than one pair of Joy-Cons, even if they don't need them, then you can do that. But the price point needs to be right, and you also need to make them interesting enough to warrant buying alternate pairs. If they stick with how they did it with the Switch 1, this means that this is going to be the design for Joy-Cons going forward. Variants will follow this format. The buttons will always remain the same color, except for special editions or, you know, weird one-offs. But as a whole, this is going to be your alternate color scheming for Joy-Cons. This is pretty much the extent of your ability to customize your Switch 2, outside of just covering it in stickers or using third-party peripherals. And it really just comes full circle with my opinion on the UI and just the general vibe of Nintendo and their consoles in general at the moment. The Nintendo ecosystem should be fun, and in that vein, it should be able to be customized. You should be able to add color and splashes of life and your own personal touches here and there, like we had with the 3DS, like we had with the Wii U. There were various things that you could do to make those consoles feel like your own. Nintendo is the fun company. Nintendo is not the sleek, modern, you know, really minimalistic, you know, high-tech company. But that's what they're going for. They're keeping it gray and they're keeping it very, very subtle. And that's just not them. But Nintendo doesn't feel like them lately, so this makes sense. I'm not surprised by this. Everything, from the littlest things like these Joy-Con designs and the biggest things like the pricing and general attitude towards the industry as a whole. Nintendo just reaffirms the fact that they are not themselves. They are not the Nintendo that we grew up with. They're not even the Nintendo from 10 years ago. They're not Nintendo anymore. They are a name and name alone. It's so interesting how every day that goes by, it gets harder and harder for the White Knights to defend these things. You know, because this is a little thing. This is just Joy-Cons, but it does matter. It does. And even the littlest things do add up. And it's so interesting to see how many cons we're compiling, Joy-Cons now, and the list of pros gets smaller and smaller to the point where it's almost non-existent. The Nintendo shows are running on fumes, man. There is not much left. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone to see more and more people turn on Nintendo, to actually snap out of it and go, wow, this is actually terrible. This is not good. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I bought into when I bought a Switch 2. When I invested into this ecosystem, I thought that, you know, I was going to get a long, exuberant console life that Nintendo is generally known for. Not always, but that was the hope, right? But they really are corner cutting. And of course, when I'm saying I here, I was speaking from the perspective of someone who was foolish enough to buy a Switch 2. I have not purchased a Switch 2. I have no desire to purchase a Switch 2. And everything that Nintendo keeps pushing out just reinforces that. Obviously, I'm not happy. I have many videos, if not most of my videos, talking about that. So Nintendo has a very long way to go when it comes to bringing people like me back on board, if that's even possible at this point. But I wouldn't be talking about this if I wasn't passionate about it, if I didn't care. And yes, they are just controllers at the end of the day, but you could say that about anything. All the things that Nintendo has been doing wrong, it's just to this, or it's just to that. And it's one of the many tactics they use, which is minimizing, trying to make it seem, oh, it's not a big deal, even though all of these little things do add up and do become a big deal. The Band-Aid response of just saying, oh, well, hey, none of that matters because fastest selling console is a weapon that's going to absolutely lose its edge as time goes on. Nintendo has to do something in 2026, and we're not off to a good start. This is frankly just embarrassing. I mean, did no one look at this from the front? Like, genuinely, did no one put these Joy-Cons on a Switch 2 and go, wow, that actually looks terrible? Or not even terrible, just looks the same. Did no one think that? Or do they have their heads so far up their own, you know, that they really think that they're being clever with this? Like somehow this minimalistic design choice is new and quirky and has never been done before. Yeah, we've never seen a controller or anything choose to do something little in the attempt to be cute and be like, oh, well, you know, less is more. Look, it's subtle. It's tasteful. No, it's just lame. You didn't do anything. Try again. Better luck next time. And who knows, maybe this video will age poorly and they'll just come out of the gates randomly one day and be like, yo, we're actually going to make some interesting design choices with our Joy-Cons, with our system itself. And now, you know what? Screw it. You can customize the UI. You can do all these things. And you know what? I'd be happy. I would be happy to be wrong in a year, 2 years, whenever they decide to do these things. But I don't know if they will. At least not for a long time. And by a long time, I mean, I don't know if they'll do it in the Switch 2's lifespan. I don't know if the Switch 2 is going to have a rebirth moment or a comeback. But right now, this shit's lame. My name is Goobles. Thank you very much for watching, and have a Goob day.